Okay, continuing in Muktza. So we have the concept of, we learned already, you can't move Muktza. Moving Muktza is forbidden when you move it with your hands, pick it up, move it. So we learned different categories of Muktza. Some Muktza you're allowed to move if you need the place, or you want to do something permissible with that object. It's called Keli Shemalachta L'Isser. Other Muktzas are completely Muktza. Like if it's very expensive, you wouldn't use it for anything else, or it's just not a utensil, or things like that. So now we're going to learn today a little bit about what's called indirect moving a Muktza. Now there's two levels of indirect moving. Indirect moving, let's say this is Muktza, I pick it up, I move it, that's normal Muktza. What happens if I move it with my hand, but I don't touch the Muktza? I take something and I move the Muktza with it. Now would that be allowed or not? To give you an example, it's not a very practical example because we didn't learn the dinim yet, it's called the base of Muktza is Muktza. But let's say I have a chair, okay, and again, we're not learning the din of a base now. But let's say there's a chair with money on it. Okay, and I would be allowed to move the chair, even though it's a base of Muktza, but let's say there's Muktza, non-Muktza on it, I would be allowed to move it. But now the question is, why am I moving the chair? I'm moving it indirectly with my hands. I'm not touching the Muktza. The Muktza is being moved automatically, but I'm not touching the actual Muktza. But I'm indirectly moving the Muktza. So the din is like this. If it's for the benefit of the Muktza, I'm not allowed to move it indirectly. So for instance, let's say this is money. This bin is money. I don't want the money to get stolen or lost. So I want to move it with something permissible. I'm going to take, let's see, this is not Muktza. I'm going to push it along until I move it to a safe place. Why am I moving this indirectly? For the Muktza. Because I don't want the money to get lost. Then I wouldn't be allowed to do it. What happens if I'm moving the Muktza because let's say I need the place where this is on, I need the place. Now, again, I just can't pick it up because it's real Muktza. I can't move something that's real Muktza because I need the place. But now the question is, I need the place on the table, and this is real Muktza, I can't move it for any reason whatsoever, but can I indirectly push it with something not for the Muktza's benefit, but because I need the place, not for the Muktza's benefit. So then the din is, I would be allowed to move it indirectly. So moving indirectly is very important to understand this. Moving indirectly means I'm moving it with my hands, but not directly touching the Muktza. So it's indirect touching. So then if I'm moving it for the sake of the Muktza, that the Muktza shouldn't get stolen, lost, or whatever, I wouldn't be allowed to do it. If I'm moving it for another reason, not for the benefit of the Muktza, I don't care if the Muktza is there or not, I need this place. And therefore I'm moving it because I need the place, then it would be allowed. Okay? What?
About moving the table that it's on.
What?
About moving the table that it's on.
Okay, that's another issue, because the table, if the table becomes a base, we didn't learn those laws yet. A base of Muktza is Muktza. So let's say nothing else would be, this money is real Muktza, okay? So let's say when Shabbos began, this was on the table, nothing else was on the table, just this thing. Huh? Yeah. I would not be allowed to move the table even after the candles are out. Because when Shabbos began, the candlesticks are Muktza. The candle holder that were lit that Shabbos are completely Muktza. I cannot move it. Therefore, because it's on the table, and therefore the table is the base of the Muktza, I would not be allowed to move the table. By the way, even if the Muktza is not anymore on the table. What happens? Friday night, the housekeeper just picked this up and took it away. Okay? This table I still cannot move on Shabbos. Why? Because when Shabbos began, that's when the law of Muktza applies. If something is Muktza when Shabbos began, it remains Muktza for the entire Shabbos. If it's not Muktza, sometimes it could become Muktza on Shabbos. Okay? Like if something breaks on Shabbos and the broken utensil is not usable, so that broken utensil now is Muktza, even though when Shabbos started it wasn't. But something that was Muktza when Shabbos began remains Muktza for the entire Shabbos. And as we learned in the past, that's the reason why there's an old Jewish custom going back thousands of years that women, before they light Shabbos candle, make sure there's challah on the table. They put challah on the table. Why do they put challah on the table? Because then the table becomes a base for muktza, candle holder, and non-muktza, which is the challah. Right now the challah is more important to me than the candles are, than the flame of the candles. It's not a question of money. It's a question of what's more important for me. So then I would be allowed to move the table. So again, that's why I said when they do the chair, there's money on the chair, I said that's only in a case where it doesn't become a base for the muktza. Because if it becomes a base for the muktza, it remains muktza the whole Shabbos. No, it's a minig that the table should not be a base only for muktza. You never heard of that?
That's what I was going to say when I was raising my hand.
Yeah, you never heard of it, and that's I give you a bracha that should be the only thing you've never heard of.
So
In Torah.
but it's not halacha to do this.
Halachically, if you don't put the challah on the table, yeah, and you lit the candles, and the candles are out, and it's a heavy dining room table, you're not planning to move it, you have no problem. You can use the table, you can eat on the table, you can sit on the table, you can sleep on the table. It's not a problem. But the reason why there's a custom to put the challah on the table or a siddur on the table, which might be a question using a siddur for such a thing. So it's not anything holy using it stam, but is because then, in case you need to move the table, you would be allowed to move the table. What?
I left my wallet and my pillow before Shabbat. The wallet is Muktza. And now I need a place to sleep. If I move the wallet indirectly, would my pillow be Muktza and I'll sleep on it?
Okay, so again, we didn't learn the din of base. Basis is when I intentionally put it on the table and I wanted it to stay for Shabbos. You put down you came home and it's late, you put your wallet on the pillow. You never planned to leave it there. You're planning to move it before Shabbos. Whatever reason happened, you didn't. So then the pillow, because it was accidentally put there, the pillow does not become a base of muktza. But again, the laws of base is very complicated. We'll learn part of the dinam of it. What?
For those who prefer U.S. currency cash in their pillow rather than feathers, is that okay on Shabbat?
I told you, your questions are way above my pay grade, and it's too complicated. Okay, so that's that type of indirect muktza. Now, you can take what happens. Let's say, for argument's sake, this paper is on top of the muktza. Now, this is muktza, right? I have it on top of it. There's something on top of muktza that's not muktza. I'm allowed to take it off the muktza. Even though the muktza thing might move a little bit, but again, that's not my intention, and basically I can take it off. Therefore, tefillin might be a little bit different. What happens if somebody has 1,000 tefillin together? Okay, normally they take out the toes. For Shabbos, they take it out, and what happens now came Shabbos morning, they realize, oh, my talis is together with my tefillin. Now, tefillin are muktza on Shabbos. What type of muktza? We said different opinions. Alter Rebbe says, Keli Shemlach Telesa. But what happens if somebody wants to take, now you have a talis tefillin bag, yeah? I'm allowed to open the zipper, take out my talis, even though the bag might move a little bit, but it's in direct movement. And I'm not doing it for the tefillin. I'm doing it for the talis. So therefore, it will be indirect muktza, not for the muktza's sake itself. So that would be permissible. Then you have another feasibility, okay, and that would be using other parts of the body. Until now, we're learning indirect movement of muktza with your hand, but you're not touching the muktza directly. You're using something else to touch the muktza, but you're using your hand basically. But not directly, it's indirect. What happens if I want to move muktzah with my foot? I want to move muktzah with my elbow. I want to, move muktzah like that. So then, this is my argument in halacha, but the Alter Rebbe is lenient, and the Alter Rebbe holds that then, even if you're moving it for the muktza itself, okay, but you're not moving it indirectly, you're moving it with a different part of the body. That's more indirect than indirectly moving it with your hand, because there's nothing to do with your hand. So let's say you want to move with your elbow, you want to kick it. Simple example, you see money in the street, okay? Or whatever, there's money around. Okay, you don't want it to get lost in the house, let's say, okay? So I'm allowed to kick the money with my foot, hide the money, okay? I am moving it for the muktza, because I don't want the money to get lost. It doesn't matter, Alter Rebbe holds you allowed to do it. Most poskim, you can do it, there are poskim say no, but a lot of poskim say you can move it, because it's not the normal way of moving it, or elbowing it, or something like that.
What about if the tefillin is on the tzitzit?
So if the tefillin are on the tzitzit, and then you just pull the tzitzis out, again, you're moving the muktzah indirectly because you're pulling the talis out, and the tefillin are going to fall down a little bit, right? But why again? Why am I I'm not touching the tefillin. I'm moving the talis for the sake of the talis. So that indirect movement is allowed because I'm not doing it for the muktzah, I'm doing it for the non-muktzah. What?
Is that a similar concept to removing the good from the bad?
No, that's not a din of buried because it's like if I take this sefer off this table, it's not buried. I'm not selecting. Selecting things are mixed together and take off one thing from the next. That's not separation. It's just not even a din of buried. I mean, whatever. So that doesn't apply. So now you can kick muktzah from one place to the next. Now the question is, how about blowing muktzah? Is that also called indirect? So there's something muktzah on the table, and I blow it. So again, there's a machlekes in halacha, but the Alter Rebbe is lenient, and the Alter Rebbe says that blowing you can't get a better indirect movement of the body than blowing. So the Alter Rebbe, very interesting, is pretty lenient in the laws of muktza compared to other, codifiers. But again, the Alter Rebbe holds that if you want to blow muktza, you can blow muktza. You want to, but again, another thing is that muktza is, we learned this all the way at the beginning, muktza is forbidden to move. Okay, you can touch muktza. Like for instance, if this is muktza, right, I could touch it. I can't move it, but I could touch it. I'll give you another example. We learned in previous classes that animals are muktza on Shabbos. Okay? So if somebody owns a dog, a cat, a bird, all those things, it's an issue with muktza. You can't pick them up and move them, and it's muktza. But what happens, could I pet a dog? Can I pet a cat? The dog's standing on the ground, and I pet it. So that's allowed, because again, I'm not moving the muktza, I'm just touching the muktza. And the whole issur of muktza, Chum said, was to move the muktza. Yes, sir?
What if you don't know that it doesn't like you petting it? So you pet it and it goes away because you're petting it. It's not like you're moving it, it's going away because you're petting it.
Isn't that right?
It's a good point, very good point. But it's not a problem because you didn't move it, it went away on its own. If you, not only that, let's say you went to the dog and said, like this, move, shoot, and it moved, it's not a problem. Because you didn't do anything, dog's moving by itself.
What about when you're touching in the shit there?
Okay, that's a different story. It's not a psikresh, it's not inevitable, you don't want it to shed, it would be allowed. Huh? What?
Why are animals books?
All right, it's too calm. We learned that already a while ago. But the animals are muktza on Shabbos. You're allowed to pick up an animal that's in distress. Let's say an animal hurt itself. So because it's Tsar Balei Chayim, which is biblical. You can't have torturing animals. And Muktza is rabbinic, so the Chachamim allowed, when there's a case of Tsar Balei Chayim, pain of animals, that you're allowed to touch, to move it. It's not Muktza then. But that's the same thing as, can you milk a cow on Shabbos? So normally, it's part of the malacha of dash. It's actually threshing. It's schita, it's squeezing. But the reason why you're allowed to milk a cow on Shabbos is because the cow would be in pain, but you're not allowed to use the milk. If a Jew milks a cow on Shabbos, you can't use the milk on Shabbos. You have to throw it away.